Hi there, Randy Green here, part 4, where we are moving from being changemakers and into becoming pioneers. And I'm following the different pillars that are on the whole Academy website. And each one of these courses and course material are part of that step ladder that takes you out of the base program factory settings and into becoming a pioneer of the future, where we are regaining our consciousness potentials and abilities to work with the original domains, the races that are outside the enclosure, and our processes into which we transform energies in our own energy system, as well as getting stronger and standing sovereign. Really what it means to truly be sovereign. I talk about that in the Changemaker news and updates, where I just kind of made a video here for week 35, where I talk about what does it actually mean to be sovereign, and how do we get to the position where we can call ourselves sovereigns. And it's all about energy. It has very little to do with some kind of mental statement that I am sovereign, I am free, I am whatever. You have to energetically have weight behind these words to be able to claim anything. Because when we talk about existing in the middle domains and in the original holographic radiation vibrational fields and the densities that they express in different sub-levels, it's all about energy. It's all about consciousness and energy and the life force that you are creating. That's part of what we're doing in this universal cycle. We are taking consciousness potentials that we have already imbued with certain traits and features from the previous universal cycle, already got individualized there. And in this one, we are transforming energies, which are the nuts and bolts the D13 we're supposed to take care of, into the new purity rate that will follow this universal cycle and the standards that we as joint groups of the D13 and D14 have agreed upon, so that we can create a new type of what we call highest level D15 consciousness units that will then merge with the infinity field and be spawned into a new universal cycle the next time around. And we're already in that process. So that's also why we're being pushed back into the middle domain, so that we can be divided into the different new versions of we are in the new grand cycle. That means where everybody is getting ready to do the elevation processes up through the different layers of the universal structures that the 12 lineages were spawned into 12 universes, each holding 12 lineages that then divided into as sub-races, which we call root races, within the different domains, where they took different features and had different skills and had different purposes and different functionality. And that's why we need to understand who and what we are, so we understand what we chose to be, what we engineered ourselves to be, the energy systems we have, no matter where we have been, no matter what reality we have taken part of, whether it's in the inner domains or the middle domain or the outer domain, where there are what we call organic life forms. Then whatever purpose we had there would always be in alignment with our original consciousness potentials. So when we kind of got into this universal cycle, we had that with us from the previous universal cycle, and so did the D13 collective, but they felt they still had to work more with the energies of the previous universal cycle. And that's why we kind of got the D13 collective that was supposed to transform the energies of the previous universal cycle and upgraded to this universal cycle, which of course we now know they have not done, except from one lineage under the solar wishes. The rest of them deviated and reverted back to the universal cycle settings of the previous universal or the previous grand cycle. So therefore they are more in alignment with technology and want to use technology, because that's some of the things we did in the previous universal cycle. So we already done that. And that's why it's so tedious that it's still coming back and keeps coming back. Because in this universal cycle, we're supposed to be change makers of that energy, transform that energy into its highest purity rate, from where we could then begin to integrate our consciousness potentials of the previous cycle and upgrade them into new standards. And that means new reality fields, new types of sciences, new types of knowledge, new types of expression of who and what we are. And the grand purpose of that was also to create what we call life force, because that's going to be part of the foundational settings of the next universal cycle. where we could say right now we're working in trinity systems, but in the next grand cycle, we are going to work in quadra systems, which is why that only the ones that have completed the fourth cycle will get through the gate system and into the next universal cycle that will begin with the fourth cycle as the low point, where we understand how to work correctly in teams, where we have the correct understanding of self, others, and reality field. And I explain all of that in the transition science courses as well as in the template science courses, where I round all of this up so you understand what I'm actually saying and how we work with the principles and how we work with the rules and how we work with the laws to reconstruct our fourth cycle energy system, going into being ready to integrate the fifth cycle configuration that will come via the higher order sciences, because that goes with the mind field that are expanding into the radiation field and from the radiation field into the inner domains, whereas the vibrational field is connected to the middle domain, where we master organic matter as well as the transformation of the previous universal cycle energies into what we call life force, that are in what we call the grand purpose of the middle domain, and why we exist in the middle domain to create this life force that has nothing to do with what keeps your physical form alive inside this reality. We are in a Frankenstein vessel. We are operating on frequency energies, has nothing to do with original life force that is part of the light body and light body configuration. So that's the middle domain, and that's why some of you will only master an orb, but that's sufficient, because the consciousness potentials you have are not in size and understanding of size. They are non-citable. They are part of the infinity field and therefore unquantifiable. Only the vibrational and radiation energies are quantifiable. The rest will be what we call quality, and that goes with potentials of knowledge. How do you weight knowledge? So in this understanding, we also understand that part of the middle domain is also what we call psychology, or the rules of engagement, where we understand, okay, we are getting out of the base program where we have had the factory settings, the diverse programs that have kept us in certain downgraded versions of what humans truly are and what humans truly can do. And I'm here not talking enclosure humans. I'm talking about the original true human civilizations and the true solar rishi humanoids. Let us just call them that. And everything that's going on is a race to ensure some kind of genetic resistance to enable whoever is going to do the transition to be able to do the transition out of the enclosure, out of the artificial fourth dimension, out of the artificial fifth dimension, and into the original density energies of the outer domain. And then whatever construction that the different groups that are here will link it up to. And that's kind of the next step of the game that we are in. So we understand as changemakers, we are for a period of time working as changemakers. That's kind of the bridge between the fourth cycle and the fifth cycle. That's why we're changemakers, where we complete what we are supposed to complete in the fourth cycle, learn to administer energy and our physical vessel, and transforming energy into the highest viability and highest vibrational rate that goes with the highest purity rate and the highest standards of the heart field, so that we can activate our mind field and begin to learn to work with the fifth cycle, the middle domain of the middle domain, the middle layers of the middle domain, the fifth dimension, but the true version of it in the original capacities that technically will already begin to unfold during the times of Atlantis, but completely flunked because they used the sciences for personal gain, as I said, reverted to the D13 collective ill-mindedness, the D13 consciousness collective ill-mindedness, and wanting to revert back into the previous universal structure, ideas and ideologies. So we are to move forwards to the D14 and what's going on now. And these are the ones that are continuing their elevation processes, and the D13 collectives are the ones that are being that will keep themselves stuck in what remains of the LPU and whatever they have created. But they are also under the strain of needing to figure out how to transform So some of the bloodlines are part of this project because they are not going to give up. They want to become enhanced humans and be part of the parallel universal matrix. We are having different groups of races that under the colonizing races that decided to take on this form and become part of what we could call a different, it's not the bloodlines, but they are in a way part of the same group that are leading this reality to some degree. They don't want to kind of, when the enclosure is gone, the physical form as we know of it, if it doesn't transform, it will begin to deteriorate, which we're already seeing. So the only way to get further into what we could talk of consciousness, progression work and continuation in existence of our original consciousness potentials and our functionality is to, in my opinion, to get back to the original progressive ways and learn to transform energy. And that's where the changemaker understand that everything we do and how we live and how we exercise and how we eat, what we eat of food and what job we have and the whole arrangement we have inside the enclosure is in a world of change. It is in a reality program that is now being upgraded into something else. And we understand that either we must follow with these upgradings or we must find another way where we can also shift out of the enclosure and into the original density energies. And that's what I mean, taking the highway. To be able to go from changemakers into pioneers, because pioneers is where we begin to really invent what we call the fifth cycle sciences and the fifth cycle of what we are. And the fifth cycle sciences and everything we'll invent there, being the new fifth cycle in entrepreneurs and innovators, is not about us going in and create a lot of new stuff inside this reality. Of course, we can if we keep reminding ourselves that whatever we are creating here is just temporary. It's not forever. It's just something that transforms energy. So if we do create some kind of nuts and bolts mechanical item, we must ensure that it is working for transformation. And how does a machine built of frequency energies transform things into density energies? Not possible. I know some of the military projects have experimented with that, putting into our computers, the chips of our computers. There are actually, in some of them, there are alien DNA. That's why the computers even work. But these type of genetics are linked to the eighth dimension, the technocratic world, so that they already imbued with the third cycle type of mechanical features, like, you know, the movie Transformers, right? So it's kind of, it's metal, it's holographic, it can change into different forms, but it is mechanical, it is non-organic. And the androids are built of the same material. And it links up to what we call the quantum field and the neutron, or we have the proton that goes with the vibrational, we have the electron that goes with the frequency spectrum, and then we have the neutron that links into the quantum field. And I know science is not teaching you that, but that's the information I have got and what I see, how I see things. So in a way, when we talk about creating technology inside this reality, we do our own business and we create technology. Well, then we will get a bit into trouble unless we learn to build in holographic energies. So therefore, you're seeing this shift in most of the what's being created markets around are what we call software. It's programs, it's virtual reality, it is service oriented. It has to do, if we do physical, it has to do with health or food or something that will contain and continue the existence of our physical forms. And quite a lot of the colonizing races already took that as part of their jurisdiction from where they operate inside this reality. That's why I said they're not technically nobility, which are the bloodlines or top brass of anything, but they have existed here and coexisted with humans for quite some time. They have their own cities under different types of dome structures inside this reality field, where when they out their door and leave their city, they are part of our construction. And when they go back home and go into their own home, they are part of their relative reality. Not that they are shape-shifting, but they are definitely operating differently there. Whether or not their human operating vessel or enclosure vessel knows of it, but at least in dream time, when they pull out the body, they go to the recreational zones in the artificial fourth dimension to maintain themselves, also using technology. And since that technology is breaking down, they no longer are able to do that. And that has been part of some of my releasing work, that they are just saying, yeah, we're done here. We're ready to go to the D14. Let us go where we're supposed to go to begin with. We're done with the D13 third cycle type of technologically imbued and infused realities. We are ready to take the responsibility of learning to transform energy using our true consciousness potentials. And with that, create life force instead of creating technology. So with that one goes that when we are thinking about as pioneers, what are we going to build? If we are going to build technology, it should be something that transforms energy. For instance, water turbines of desalination of ocean water into not necessarily drinking water, but irrigation and dishwasher water or whatever, or to flush in the toilets. That would be a transformational state of one type of energy into something that is functional, that will assist in depolluting our reality. There is absolutely no point in flushing out drinking water in our toilets. It's ridiculous and it must stop. So that would be a kind of what we call technology that is transforming something for the highest good of the many. So if we do invent technology, it must be something that transforms states of matter into another state of matter that has the potentials of assisting for the highest good of the many, so as many as possible will be able to do the transition. Okay, simple as that. If it's just something for profit or personal gain or anything that just goes in, oh yeah, that would be nice to have, and you market it and you create a false need using marketing techniques and neuroscience and whatever to manipulate people to buy your product, then you are on the wrong side of the fence. That's not progressive. So as transformative humans and change makers, we understand that when we begin to pioneer into the sciences of the future, we're not doing the futuristic transhuman sci-fi advanced gadget crap realities that the transhumans are trying to sell off to humans as this is the future. The more technology we have, the better we are off. Absolutely not. That's not the path. Not for this reality field. If you were in the Sirian system, yes. If you were in the Orion system, yes. So go there, do your technological bullshit. But not here. Here we work to create life force and progression dynamics, transforming energy. So for those of us who choose to do the D14 progressive path, the D14 collective consciousness path, we understand that we create life force, transforming energy and transforming it to its highest purity rate, the highest standards and the highest progression rate for the highest good of the many under the laws and the rules and the principles and under the directives of the councils. And we do it as a joint team. So we lift the burden of the many, but we are always running as the first of many for the highest good of the many as the forerunners. And that's part of the pioneer work as well. Understanding that when we are forerunners, not because we want more power and we want to use everything that we can transform into, get ourselves positioned in some new pillar power of some sort and have people and underlings under us. But it's about we transform more and more energy so that we take more and more responsibility, not only transforming our own energy system to the highest potentials, but we also transform our surroundings and we transform society via business, because society runs on business, society runs on trade. The races we are getting aligned with are all traders. They trade knowledge, they trade genetics. We're not going to do that. But there are groups within inside this reality that are working on that branch, of course. We know that. And then there are different structures which goes with the event program or the matrix of change that are within financial system, social structures, governance, and health. These are the four main structures that will be the word is permitted, and we kind of struggle with these words. But when we talk about the races that are coming in now, they have a very strict hierarchical structure. Some of them are used to be under the Dracos. The Dracos are not particularly active anymore, but the Dracos have a very strict structure, and they have adapted into that because it creates, when we're talking about a D13 collective consciousness imbued races that were part of a universal cycle where most of the things ended up in wars and exploitation and enslavement and territorial claims and takeovers and colonization and all sorts of stupidities, then you understand the only way to keep all of these warring races under control or living side by side in some kind of ordered society is to have a hierarchical structure where there are laws that if you bend them, that's part of the Draco laws, well, then that's the quick way to get out of that reality field. And you have to fight your way up in the hierarchical structure to be able to gain power. So that's what we could say a reversed or regressed version of the original Pillar project. But it is what it is. We have rules and laws and principles as well, but I explain that in the transition science courses as well as in the template science courses, how we operate with that as completely freedom and sovereignty under responsibility and under the joint group decisions that are done by the councils. In the D13 collective hierarchical structure, it's the top brass that decides everything else for the underlings. And it all goes with power. So they work to get power and they use technology to do so. We work to get the highest progression rate for as many as possible and share that. And spawn new life forms, not breeding, but that's why many of the progressive humans have been encapsulated into the breeder programs, because we are spawning new life force, that can lead to new life forms, but not as using our vessels as incubators, which is absolutely unacceptable in all ways and forms. So completely unnecessary as well. But these are the things that are part of the past. And as we go from changemakers and into pioneers, we also understand, okay, we have the new features that are coming. So we need to learn to work with that. That's part of the sciences. And then we also need to remind ourselves of the original sciences. So we need to remember who we are so we don't get lost on the highway. Unless you know where you're going, then you will just go where everybody else is going. So that's kind of one of the old sayings, as in kind of there's many on the broad road, right? The Mahayana or the big vessel. And there are a few on the narrow road, and that's the narrow road that we are taking, the difficult narrow road where everything is transforming into the highest possible knowledge using the principles and the understanding of how to transform energy, working with the holographic principles, vibrational dynamics and processes, as well as using the radiation field to build patterns and symbols and code systems that allows us to reconstruct our energy system. And in doing so, we are reconnecting to the original networks of our reality field that are tying up the holographic features of everything that exists. So if you learn to work with the holographic energy, we learn to work with the reality field. If we learn to transform our heart field into becoming the vibrational field, we will vibrate everything up, amplify it to its highest standards, and clearing out the D13 collective energies to their highest purity rate using the vibrational features of the D14 collective. And that's the principles and the choices that we're constantly making on the timelines, going under the great responsibility of transformation of old energy to the highest purity rate. And by that, build in what we call knowledge and wisdom of how to operate correctly in the code streams and then reality field we are part of under the directives of the ancient ones and what their purpose were with this solar system when they constructed it a very long time ago. And as we learn that in the fourth cycle and we learn to work in teams and work so correctly with the transformation of the reality energies and uplifting it to its highest standards, then we begin to work with the radiation energies where we then begin to create what we call the next step of the life force, where we begin to encode it to hold what we could call higher density life forms that will then allow us to work with what we call the holographic radiation energies of the inner domain. So the vibrational field is technically only in the middle domain. So when we look in that context, we also understand as changemakers that the grand purpose of the outer domain are to transform code systems, using vibrational energy to amplify it up to its highest purity rate, and by that link to the radiation field and the holographic structures and the very, very ancient technologies that teaches us via the holographic teaching systems what are the code systems of the true developmental programs of the councils and the original directives under the D14 collective as we developed it in the Pillar Project. Okay, so that it's all part of our energy system. As we develop ourselves into a higher knowledge base and learn to work with more and more complex information systems, which goes with the vibrational field, and understand everything we work in is processes, dynamics, systems, things that are interacting together, that are interdependent with each other because we are vibrating on the same type of oscillation. And by that, we come in close contact with each other, which is called energetic affinity. But we are also drawn together via the genetic affinity that goes with our original purpose and function as part of the lineages. That's some of the things that we're going to explore into the future as pioneers. And then hopefully, if possible and allowed so by the different races that are coming in, have our contribution to the transformation of the enclosure back into original density energy. It's not that we're going to stay here, because nobody is, and there's a lot of pull-outs now, which you're seeing if you're reading the news. And it's going to be what we say in the old enclosure setup and the old technologies as they are breaking down. These portions of reality is not going to be where we will exist. So we must transform ourselves into a higher viability rate, as well as have code systems that are aligning more and more with what we call the holographic features. And to begin with, it will be part of the matrix of change in the new reality program. So as change makers, we are working on what we say a double awareness as always. First, we had the base program, the progression work. Then we had the progression work and into becoming change makers. And then from change makers, we work into becoming pioneers. So base program, organic vessel, progression work, middle domain, vibrational field, change makers, where we learn to lift that to the highest potentials, where we build the bridge into becoming the forerunners that are beginning to develop our fifth dimensional mind field, enabling us to go into the fifth cycle, from where we will have a stronger position when we shift out of this physical form and enter into the middle domains, which now, unfortunately, in this universal structure is now under the D13 collective as well. But there are all other rules. And we are kind of test running that already now, those of us who have willingly or unwillingly been part of some of the enhancement programs, and others like myself that have been clearing and working on the different timelines and the different dimensions and onward and so forth, have had a lot of holographic other dimensional contact already, have explored and experienced and been exploited by many of these races, and by that have fought my way through the different rules of engagement and their different hierarchical structures, and understood, okay, they operate in that way. So if I don't want to be aligned with them, if I don't want to do what they do, I need to vibrate differently. I need to position my mind field in a different code stream that holographically are working with a different type of information system, so that my type of symbol and my type of configuration will follow the original network dynamics of energetic and genetic affinity that draws me to the perception fields and the inner understanding of that type of domain that I want to position myself into. And then from that standpoint and that configuration, and that's actually where you are sovereign in your own energy field, you then begin to latch on, so to speak, implant your symbol into the holographic network on that level, which will then, when you shed off this body, be that vessel you have created, which you will transfer into. If you don't do that, you will transfer into some of the replicates of the parallel universal matrix or whatever's going on. So this is our taking advantage of understanding, okay, this is what the event program is about. So we will use these dynamics as when you're building a business, you need to understand the market you're part of. You need to do a SWOT analysis where you look at it. Okay, these are the strengths and the weaknesses of either the product or yourself. And these are the opportunities and these are the threats. So you need to understand what you're part of so that what you want to create, you will get a niche. You will be able to launch your product, or you will be able to launch your, perception field as well as your energy system configuration, although that the reality program that is now being built are working in a different way, because everything is code streams, everything is holographic, everything is like software. So therefore, if we kind of know how these patterns of change work, and if we understand how reality is built up, and if we understand the dynamics and the sciences behind the fifth dimension where code streams are being engineered and developmental programs are being launched and created, and the technology that upholds it are being built there as well, then we can begin to understand via our mind field and the expansion field and the perception level that we are able to view with our inner eyes and the inner senses. And that's not remote viewing. For me, that's kind of an astral feature. And I don't think many that actually has done remote viewing have actually really seen things that were legit. Anyways, experimentations, just military project again, right? But we will then begin to understand that the complex information systems we're working with will develop that knowledge that allows us to build our mind field in a manner so that we are both working on the radiation level, building complex patterns of information and code streams that links us to a high potential field of the middle domain. But we're also understanding via our heart field that we are working as teams for the highest good of the many. We vibrate things up because we transform it into a higher potential form of existence using life force, that are energy that's transformed, imbued with consciousness potentials. And from there, in the original domains, we then create what we call a type of technology that can administer the reality field, the nuts and bolts of it, similarly as the ancient ones did it. They were the first ones that began unfolding the potentials of the D14 collective. So we are having that understanding of this is what we're doing. So when we are doing business, or we are doing whatever we're doing as part of Changemakers and going into becoming pioneers, all of these typical ideas that people get when we look into the future, toss them in the can. They need to go. Put them in the bin. They are of no use. They are transhumanism. We don't want to go there. All of these, when we talk about genetic manipulation, etc., that's also going on. We need to, if we do take part of the 4 areas of the systems within the event program, as I said, I'm building my way into it. So when I begin to explain the event program itself, then you will have this basic understanding. Okay, this is what we're doing also as forerunners. And when we begin to be bridge builders, where we actively begin to transform the enclosure, because for me, that's what we will do. That will be the top notch of our progression work if we're capable of doing that. If we can go in and say, well, everything kind of got fucked up, but I'm still completing it to the best of my abilities because I damn have that honor in me, that will to do my very best for the highest good of the many, as the first of many for the highest good of the many. We must be the perfectionists, not in personal power, but in the amount of energy that we transform as change makers, so that we do understand that when we go out and we do take part in society and we go to the second ring, which is the 2-8 pillar where we work with others, we understand that we are not just leaders. We are not just managers doing administrative things that goes with upholding the business, managing the business, the nuts and bolts. We are also innovators, forerunners, pioneers, inventors, change makers, and we are working with energy to transform as much as possible, to literally transform the enclosure as it is. And yes, there will be people that will never experience this because they will live in their relative reality. But if we are going to go closer to the holographic radiation vibration energies and the true domain features, that is how we will operate in our everyday lives. And that's very important when we go into the bridge builder material of the Forerunner that begins with the Forerunner course 1, and then it goes into the bridge builder course 2, where we begin to literally transform the code systems of our own biofield. And if we can learn to do that, then we can also learn to transform the code systems of the holographic network. That is the reality we're part of. And the question is if we will be allowed to do so. And that's why I'm not pushing for it right now. We need to be further in the event program. So to begin first, we are then saying, okay, there are 4 sectors within the event program that we can operate under. And we need to figure out which one do we fit into. And we will be classified, unfortunately, due to our everyday work. We will be classified in different sections within the event program, which is already ongoing. And if we don't like where we have been positioned, well, then it's up to us to clear out more of our energy system, to vibrate higher up, to find the timelines where we have got more potential stuck, clear it out, retrieve it, either dismantle it or retrieve it, rebuild new code systems, and then get the knowledge that we need so that we will get a higher position. Because I said these races that are coming in a hierarchical, and they go with trade, they go with power, they go with knowledge, they go with sciences. So if you want to have a good position, that's where you're going to go. But don't go the whole science fiction, mechanical, transhuman, machine world kind of thinking. This is not about you enhancing yourself with machines. This is about enhancing you with knowledge, a strong energy system where your position will be defined via your viability rate and your amplification abilities of already existing energies, because that's what they want. They're struggling to keep their worlds alive. And yes, you will be harvested quite a lot of times until you have learned their governance and their governance systems and how you can drum up holographic trials from where you can claim that they have no rights to put you into these different sectors and different programs that they are having as part of their realities. And that's some of the pioneer work as well, where we, at least I will do my very best in the whole academy later on, to educate people to deal with aliens. How do we do that psychology as well? I have taken a huge chunk of my life to deal with in base program humans and try to work with them and teach them better ways to be around each other. Psychology. It's all psychology. But it's different forms of psychology. So with that, as I said, it's a step ladder where we develop different features. And right now, as change makers, to become pioneers, we need to gain position. We need to understand the correct use of energy and the correct use of power. And we only get there if we have gone through principle 1 to 9, which means we must be the masters of our own energy system. Only then can we begin to claim a position. And that's the struggle that we are in, as in, yeah, we are doing that as change makers, and everything we do will technically grant us a position in the futures to come. But will they allow us to do so? So therefore, you must play by their rule book, but not become part of them. And that's the difficulty. But if you have mastered to get out of the base program, you should already have learned the basic understanding of how to transition yourself out of the mass consciousness and stand individualized in the what we call the progression work. And there begin the first steps towards sovereignty in the true understanding of an integrated personality, because you are now not just working with the programs of the mass population, but you have individualized yourself in a manner where you, via your psychological work, your clearing work, your energy work, and your what called template work and your timeline work, are beginning to integrate and upgrade yourself into what you used to be by working with everything that you have been in the past. So that's also part of the spectrum where we understand we need to clear the past if we want to become viable, functional humans in the present that actually can claim a position in the other worldly realms that are now becoming part of our reality field. And that's also why it's not going to be disclosure, but it's going to be implementation, and it's going to be accretion, and it's going to be a blend, and it's going to be a merge, and it's going to be this sliding out of one perception of reality into another in slow bits, little bit here, little bit there, as the pattern is being built. And one day the pattern is done, and then people will literally just wake up and there'll be something else. And whatever is left that doesn't match the new pattern will either be wiped or cleared or removed. And then whoever will be left will be part of the new event program, the new enclosure version that will then be the new world that is going to exist and be here. So people that kind of are now within the base program understanding, they will be transferred somewhere else, and we will wake up someday when we've done the work that we're supposed to do, or have been transformed or being blended or merged or whatever, in a reality where things will shift, where we will then begin to work with advanced technologies, we'll begin to work with new types of sciences, we'll begin to work with new ways of being human, we'll begin to be around each other in a different way. We're already seeing how that is playing out. We will come under a stronger hierarchical structure. There will be a stronger governance. There will be a different type of political system. The healthcare system will be based upon technology, genetic manipulation, alteration, modification. We will have structures within society that are going to position people within different functions as they have it in the other worlds. We'll be educated in that manner. Other types of educations will cease to exist. New ones will come in. And we will have a new type of financial system, which we're already seeing. It's moving away from actual physical molecular state of wealth into more and more virtual, into more and more what we could call trade systems, where eventually there will be no money system at all. We're already seeing how so much more, that's what I was going to say, are being offered for free on the internet. Because when we begin to truly understand what are the purposes of existence, it's not about earning money and profit and all of that old school ideology. It's all about transforming reality, take care of the environmental issues, the problems, learn to work together. And that is not necessarily under the progressive dynamics, but it's still a form of teamwork to undo the damages of our reality field and reconstruct it into a version that can either, if that is a success, the parallel universal matrix, that's what they're working for. But if that's not possible, at least the ones that are working with the preliminary sciences of this will then have test run it here in the outer domain. And then when they shift into the middle domain parallel universal matrix version of it, then they will have the knowledge with them. They will have built the energy system in a similar way that we are building our energy systems. So it all comes down to exemplification. It all comes down to what are you using your abilities for? How do you work with energy? How do you transform energy? And for what purpose do you transform energy? What sciences are you derivating from your work with the transformation of energy? What layers of understanding and code systems do you get? How do you build the algorithms that changes the holographic fields, the developmental programs? And we're here talking very similar to computer sciences. But here, the difference between computer sciences is that computer sciences work on the internet that is restricted via binary code systems. But when you go into the future technologies that are holographically based, then what you create via your advanced technology that can work holographically, you are affecting the holographic network of your reality. And that's where they're trying to take the quantum computers, but the quantum dynamics are taking them into the dark worlds in the third cycle, because quantum fields are emptied out third cycle reality fields. So they need to go holographic into the middle domain, into the other dimensional setting, where they will then learn to work with the holographic principles of where each energy unit holds the code system of the entire pattern. But only if these individual units are put together into a symbol or a pattern will they unfold as a reality construction or a matrix that can lead to functional changes within the organic life forms, as well as within the holographic reality networks that are behind reality fields that are rippling into the different systems of change and systems of existence that enables life forms to exist within a reality field. And with that prelude, we are then getting a step further into the matrix of change understanding, where I can, in the next video, begin talking about the little article I have written, which you will find under the pioneer work as a part of the matrix of change, that are called the extra systemic add-ins, because we're not doing disclosure, we're doing transition. And there's a huge difference there. And those of us who are part of the transition, we will get the knowledge. We are already under these upgrading programs that are psychologically changing us to already have a shitload of encounters with either holographic programs, holographic developmental programs, teaching us the rules of the different groups that are getting ready to get into human form and coexist with us as they did in the beginning of the colonization. So we are repeating history over and over again. And let us see where it will take whatever's coming in now and how far they can push it, if they can succeed, or if they will, as everybody else, misunderstand what this reality field is about, because they are coming in with a different culture, different rule set, a different D13 collective nuts and bolts technology, and don't understand that this reality field is based upon D14 collective consciousness technology, and that all life forms that exist here must be under that directive, but it must adhere to that. And if not, then the construction will be shut down. But they know that now, so that's what's happening, and it's being pulled out. And then they will take what they can to create what they want to create here, and either put down their flag and colonize it, or do what they need to do here and then pull out and then leave the rest to fall into the abyss. Again, just putting it in context so you understand that when we work as change makers, everything we do is just different processes. Everything is in flux. Everything changes. The Theravada Buddhist teachings teaches us that. Everything is impermanent. It's only when you try to keep and cling onto something that it becomes a frustration. If you understand that everything is supposed to change, everything is supposed to progress, everything is supposed to develop, then you are on the first step of the highway, where you begin to work in different ways and forms to keep yourself at high speed and as part of the new reality program. Thank you.